Hey guys, it's Kevin DaSilva here with the Living in Los Angeles channel, and today we're talking about how to negotiate and win the repair request game with the seller. Yes, you're buying a house, you find some problems, how do you deal with it? So, you're buying a house. And it's a big purchase. I mean, let's be real. In Los Angeles, the average purchase price is over $1.2 million. The median purchase price is almost $1 million. So that just goes to tell you there's a lot of money at stake. And so you're buying a house, probably putting a lot of your money and your finances towards the home purchase, and you don't want to get stuck with some problems because some problems can lead to financial turmoil. So in this video, we are going to chat about what to investigate, how to investigate, and also how to negotiate. And a few quick disclaimers. We never recommend, never buy a house without doing a home inspection. I've seen it happen. Even for flippers, I recommend a home inspection. For developers, it's a little bit different. You don't care about the house, but you definitely want to walk the property and make sure there are no surprises, no hazardous materials. But for the regular, everyday homeowner or soon-to-be homeowner, always do an inspection. Also, just keep in mind that you, the buyer, will be responsible for these inspections. And if you were to cancel, you do not get your inspection money back, including the appraisal, unless you have it in the contract that the seller's paying for it. Then they don't get the money back either. Does that make sense? So first, you have to assess your game plan. And in order to do that, you have to understand what you're inspecting. If you're buying a single family house, you're going to have more inspections than if you're buying a condo or a townhouse. Now, if you're buying a freestanding townhouse, you're going to have more inspections than you would a normal townhouse where it's attached to the neighbor. There's something to keep in mind. Are you buying land? Also, keep in mind, what are you doing with the property? Are you going to improve the home? Are you going to build it, right? You need to do more investigation with the building department and maybe do soil testing if you're in a hillside, right? These are just a few things. Also, are you in a fire zone? Should you be inspecting for defensible space to make sure that your home's not going to burn down, or defensive structure, defensive, water systems, stuff like that, things that can help you preserve your home. And are you moving in? Are you remodeling? Are you going to build it up? So these all come into consideration. So let's talk about your main inspections. All right. You buy a single family house. I like to call these the big three: your general property inspection, your sewer line inspection, or if you're in a hillside and away from sewer line, your septic inspection, and 3, your termite inspection. So let's chat about this real quick. Your general property inspection is going to be where, basically somebody goes around, they're a certified inspector. They are going to check every appliance, or almost every. Sometimes they don't test the washer dryer or some of those appliances, and they'll have that in their inspection notes. In which case, run a load. It's part of your investigation. Do some laundry for the seller, or bring your own. Anyway, I actually have not seen anybody do that, by the way, but I don't not recommend it, especially if the washer and dryer is staying with the home. So your general property inspection, they're going to check every outlet, every light switch, every light bulb. They're going to turn on your AC if you have it, your heating system. They're going to check your stove, your oven, maybe the refrigerator. A lot of times they don't check that one. They're going to go outside. They're going to check the roof. They're going to check the structure. They're going to go into the house. They're looking for cracks in the foundation. They're looking for any leaks, stuff like this. They're basically turning on every faucet and playing with everything in the house to make sure it works properly. That is one of your biggest and most important inspections. Now, that said, you have your termite inspection. A lot of people don't realize this is actually a wood-destroying pest inspection. And as such, you will actually get to see if the showers are leaking. A lot of times, termite inspectors will plug the shower, fill it up, or the bathtub, and then check for leaks, especially on tile stuff, because they want to see underneath the house. if it's leaking because mold and fungus turn into wood-destroying pests. Anyway, and then your sewer line inspection. Now, this one is exceptionally important. Not to downplay anything else, but sewer line issues in front of the house, the repairs typically start at about $7,500, and they quickly escalate to $15,000. If you can't sleeve the sewer, you are going to replace a section, and that is going to cost you a lot of money. So for $300-$400, I would spend that money to make sure that I'm not paying. And no insurance company is going to cover your your sewer line, and no warranty company is going to cover your sewer line. So this is something to take into consideration. When you're doing a condo or you're doing an attached townhouse, you're probably going to cut that sewer line. You're not going to do it because you're not checking through your neighbor's plumbing to see if you're all set up. So that's something to keep in mind. You could do termite, but a lot of times the HOA is responsible for the termite. That doesn't mean don't do it, because if you find termites, maybe you want to check with the HOA to see when was the last time they did termite treatment for the building. But at the same time, just know that you're probably going to pay for an inspection, and you're not going to get any benefit from it because it's usually HOA responsibility. Now, for freestanding townhomes, it really depends. I do always recommend the sewer line and the big three, but it's something to take into consideration. Now, there are some things you want to investigate on your own that you could hire somebody to do for you, and I'm not doing for you because if I get wrong information, odds are you could sue me because I am now the holder of that information. But as far as things are concerned, I'm going to review the seller disclosures, and I'll review any document you give me, but I will point you in the right direction. You're going to want to review the seller disclosures. I review the seller disclosures. My transaction coordinator reviews the seller disclosures. We're just getting eyeballs on this document to see what the seller is saying. You really got to take this with a grain of salt because homeowners, some of the things that they're under the gun, they're sitting there filling out this paperwork for you, they may have forgotten. They repaired something 10 years ago. They totally forgot about it. So they're not going to include it. Though it might come up in your investigation when you do your general inspection or your sewer line inspection. But on the side, you also want to reach out to the building department. Now, Los Angeles City Department of Building and Safety has a ton of resources for you. But a lot of municipalities are actually going digital as well. Like now you can find your digital copy of your permits in torrents. You can find digital copies for Los Angeles County unincorporated. And you can find digital copies for most municipalities these days. Some you still have to physically request, but you can fill out an online form and get copies of all this. You're going to want to check the building records. Now, do keep in mind they lose building records. And LA City had a huge fire back in the late 90s, I believe, early 2000s that burned up a bunch of building records. I was in escrow on a property obviously well after. I was still in grade school at the time, but I was in escrow on a property in Los Angeles a few years ago, back in 2018, and it had been built in 1992. The sewer line wasn't on record. So I went down to the building department to prove that it was. Don't recommend this if you're a real estate agent, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And I went down there and talked to the building person, and he pulls out this map, and there was a red line. And he's the one that actually told me about the fire. And there's this red line. And he says, there is a permitted sewer there. I said, how do you know that? He said, because the red line is only marked when it's signed off. Okay, whatever. Learn something new every day. They obviously don't use that anymore, and they're not losing a bunch of building records all over the place. But this is definitely something you should check. And then while you're there, you're going to want to check on the zoning of the property to make sure that you can do with the house what you want to, make sure there aren't any restrictions, to make sure you can build it as big as you want, to put as many units on it as you want, or you can remodel it in the manner that you wish. Also make sure that it's not a commercial zoned property because sometimes single family homes are on commercially zoned properties. And you're going to want to look into insurance and the neighborhood. Go talk to the neighbors. Ask their experience on living there. Sometimes they know information about the house that the seller's not going to tell you, that they forget, or they didn't know about because the neighbors knew the previous owners. So it's always good to talk to the neighbors. Go knock on some doors. Introduce yourself. He's about to be your friends. You're probably going to live here for another 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Get to know the people around you. And last but not least, on your own homework to do, check insurance, rates, coverage, get a quote. You might not be able to get the inspection in this time, but definitely get a good idea of what's going on. A lot of times they can check to see if an insurance claim has been made in the past. Some of your best insurers might back out because of that. Just know that this is a very important part of the process. The last thing you want is to realize that your insurance premiums are going to be higher than you thought. All right, so you've done your own homework. You've done your general inspection. Some things come up. What do you do? Well, number one, you order some additional inspections. What are some specialty inspections you want to check to be able to really investigate the property and make sure you know what you're getting into? Now, why would I do specialty inspections? Well, for one, you don't want to make any repair requests until you have a full understanding of what's going on. This is key to your negotiation because you want to understand the cost and the total gravity of the matter by somebody who specializes in that department. Let me give you some ideas. If you're planning to build, you're on a hillside, you're going to want to start day one with a soil test. These things can take 21 days, so you need to know what you're getting into ASAP. That's number one. Number two, if you've discovered anything with the foundation, any structural concerns, you're going to want to order a structural inspection from a certified and licensed foundation contractor. They're also structural engineers. They just specialize in foundations and those kinds of repairs. If you're in a fire hazard zone, you're going to want to order from day one somebody to come out and check to see that your home is defensible. Defensible. How do you say that? I think it's defensible. But anyway, there's an investigation you can have done around it. You can also check to make sure that the property is in compliance with the city or the county regarding the brush and stuff around the property. Make sure that the property is not going to easily catch fire. But defensible space is a step above and beyond in case you're adjacent to brush fire hazards. You're going to want to see, is your home protected? So that's definitely a huge one. So we talked about structural, defensible space. We talked about soil testing. Maybe you found some water damage. We highly recommend if you find any water damage, you do mold testing. You're definitely going to want to see where it's coming from. Unfortunately, you don't get to open up the walls and see the true gravity of it. But based on the amount of damage, a lot of times you can speculate. And to be clear, water only comes from one of a few places. Either you have a pool, you have plumbing, which you will have, or water's coming in off the roof. I mean, it really is not rocket science where your water's coming from. Here in Southern California, obviously, when you get to other parts of the country where there's groundwater, it's different. But we sell homes here in Los Angeles. That's our specialty. That's what we know best. And last but not least, on your additional inspections, your specialty inspections, specialty contractors, such as plumbers. You got plumbing issues, you want a plumber to take a look at it. You have electrical issues, you should have an electrician take a look at it. If you have sewer problems, you should have a sewer plumbing contractor take a look at it. If you have general issues that you want to assess, decks, anything like that, patios, concrete, driveways, have a general contractor come take a look at it. Inspecting HVAC, having a heating and cooling company come take a look at your heating and cooling systems, having a roofer come take a look at your roofing system, having a solar company come take a look at your solar system. You get the point. Whatever's there, there's a specialist for it. And if it's wrong, you should have somebody take a look at that. And my last disclaimer, if at any point the amount of repairs becomes overwhelming or seems excessive for what you're buying, we can renegotiate, but sometimes repairs are in excess of what you could even negotiate with the seller. It might be advisable to just move on and find another house that doesn't have these problems, unless it's the perfect home and you're willing to make it work. Okay, so we put everything together. We've investigated all aspects of the property. We've checked everything. We've gotten bids. We're ready to move forward. We move forward with what is called a repair request. Now, my strategy is always to ask the seller to repair certain items unless there are things that are damaged that you would like to remake, right? So maybe you're not going to ask the seller for an entire credit. You're just going to ask for additional cost. Like, for instance, if there's mold behind the kitchen sink, that mold remediation is going to cost you money. And if you're going to remodel anyways, then the fact that the cabinets suck doesn't make a difference to your cost. But the fact that now you have to remediate and restore that section of wall and potentially the floor below, you now have some problems that are in excess of your budget, and you should be asking the seller to do that. Now, are you going to ask them to remediate for you? No, because you're going to need it open. You're going to replace it with your own things. You don't want them to restore it back to some condition that is not in your favor. Just take the credit, right? But I like to make my repair request where we are specifying, and even down if we're concerned about who the contractor will be hired by the seller, we can always name our own contractors. I work with trusted professionals. That doesn't mean these are the only professionals you need to work with, but just know that they've done a lot of work for my homes. They build, they're in the business. They build all the time, and that is why I trust them. I've worked with them in the past. They've worked for clients of mine. When I get good reviews from them, from clients after having referred them, it's great. But we don't know who the seller's contractor is. That contractor might not even be practicing much anymore. It might just be a friend. So we got to be careful with stuff like that. And as such, we might, and I did this recently, name our own contractors to do the work. I did this for a house that I closed in Venice. We named our own contractors. We had a few concerns about the property, about how the work was going to be completed, because there were already concerning items that had been addressed by the seller and weren't addressed to code. So we were concerned that these things were possibly not going to be addressed to code again. So we named our own professionals. They ended up settling on a credit, which came with a pro and a con. I'll get into that in just 1 second. But my client ended up getting a great deal on the house, and property values spiked right after she bought it, which essentially she ended up closing with over $100,000 of equity if she were to sell that property again, and she barely owned the property for a day. So we request that the seller complete the work. They respond back. A lot of times sellers don't want to get in the hassle of completing the work. The reality is they would like to move on. Some are more hands-on, and I've had great experiences from it. One time I was helping a buyer buy a house. The sewer had some issues. We wanted it hydrojetted. The seller had been a city inspector for LADBS, and sure enough, he discovered that there were cracks in the sewer line, and he ended up replacing the whole sewer line for my clients. They were thrilled. We didn't even ask for it. We just asked that it be hydrojetted and re-inspected because the roots were blocking the ability of the camera to see the whole line. So this is a huge example of where a seller did the right thing, and our clients were very happy because of that. Now, that doesn't always happen. Typically, homeowners are looking for the cheapest way to make you happy, and the cheapest way isn't always the best way. So do keep that in mind when you're making the repair request, and especially keep that in mind with how you expect it to get done. Here's the benefit of asking for the seller to repair the property. When you move in, it's already done. You get to move in. Now, the risk is that they didn't do it right or they didn't do it, because it's actually not a contingency. Your only recourse if they don't complete the repair is to sue them and take them to court. Now, they could be liable for legal fees and all that, but that's just such a hassle. Then the next one is to take a credit. Now, the benefit of the credit is that you get the money it's yours. If your repair runs under cost or you have a better, cheaper way to complete the repair, then you get to keep the credit. The downside is if the repair runs over cost, you do not get to keep the credit. Or you get to keep the credit. You do not get to go back to the seller for the additional money. So let's just clarify. Yes, you get the money now. If your repair runs under cost, great. If it runs over cost, you're out of pocket. So that's something to take into consideration. Also, if you're taking a loan, you're limited on the amount of your credit. You can only take credit in the amount of your closing costs, and different lenders are different. So some lenders will allow you to do all of your closing costs. Some will allow you to leave impound accounts, leave money behind to be paid at a later point. Some won't. Keep in mind, if you do the impound account, that where money comes out of escrow to pay a contractor, that money is not, it has to go to a licensed contractor. So if you ever try to do any work yourself, you're not going to get reimbursed that money. And sometimes contractors are more expensive when they know that it's coming from a entity that's giving oversight, right? And then the downfall of a credit is obviously if it runs over, you're out of pocket. You can only accept so much credit money if you're taking a loan. But yeah, I mean, in general, the huge benefit is you get the money, you get to make sure it's done the way you want it done so that you're happy, because the reality is you're the one who's going to be owning this house moving forward into the future. So in a nutshell, this is an example of how to investigate and negotiate a repair request with the seller. I know I made it really simple and I talked about a lot of things. It's about being thorough. It's about providing documentation. It's about addressing real problems, not asking for the world. And what I mean by that is it broken? Is it leaking? Is it missing a part? Like, is a door clearly missing from this room? Like it used to be there and somebody took it off and never put it back and I'd like it there. Does it pose a health hazard or a safety hazard? When I negotiate on that criteria, I usually get most of everything I want for my clients so that you can live in your house after close of escrow with peace of mind, comfort, and security, knowing that the home is going to be livable and in great condition for many years to come, so you can have birthday parties, graduation parties, you name it. Repair requests are just one part of a very large transaction. If you want to know more about what goes on in transaction, or you want to see our hot properties that come up, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Turn on notifications so that you could be the first to know and implement these tips, tricks, and properties in your lifestyle. Have a wonderful day. Kevin DeSilva here with the Living in Los Angeles channel. Have an amazing year. We'll talk soon.